Hey folks, welcome to another video for Collect Baseball 99. In our first video, we looked at something that a lot of collectors aspire to, incorporating Babe Ruth into a collection. This time we're going to look at something a little bit more contemporary, a little bit more affordable, maybe a little bit more controversial. Incorporating Jose Canseco into your collection. If you're in your late 30s, early 40s, Jose Canseco was a big part of your childhood in the world of baseball. In the late 80s and early 90s, he was the player, major player in the sport, the major draw, the one that the news media was paying attention to, doing things that the sport hadn't seen before. 1988, 40 home runs and 40 stolen bases in a season, hitting some mammoth blasts. I remember a couple in the Sky Dome that perhaps still haven't landed. And then, of course, as we drift further into the 90s, the steroids controversy being right in the middle of it. And changing the nature of the way that the sport and fans of the sport had to view the game. So Canseco has a big role in baseball history. Therefore, he might find a spot in a lot of people's collections, whether for nostalgia purposes or just to chronicle that period. So here are some thoughts about some fun ways and affordable ways you could incorporate him into a collection. I picked up this Topps magazine. This is the premiere issue from 1990 at a local comic book store for $1. Of course, in 1990, getting their publication started, they wanted Canseco on the cover. That's with Ken Griffey Jr. already coming into the limelight. Superstars like Tony Gwynn, Nolan Ryan, Wade Boggs, Don Mattingly, Cal Ripken being at their peak. Canseco was still the guy. And a magazine like this can be a lot of fun. If we open it up, not only do we have the articles about Canseco himself, a little reference still in the fast lane to some legal trouble he had back in the day. But we can read a little bit about him and remember why he was so important to the sport. We get some fun inserts here, poster of all the 1990 Topps cards, so we can have a checklist of them. We get our baseball card inserts, Ken Griffey Jr., Ruben Sierra, Brett Saberhagen, Jerome Walton, Kevin Mitchell, Mike Scott, all sorts of fun stuff as we go through. Some jokes and humor in the back, referencing everything from Star Trek to Batman to Garbage Pail. A 10-year review looking back at Topps in the 80s, 81, 82. Nice little cartoon strip with a cartoon Don Mattingly to keep us company as we go through this. All sorts of fun stuff to be considered. You can look back and see who our #1 draft picks were. There's even a fun article from big baseball fan Fred Savage from the Wonder Years, and read about him and his collection back in the day. So all sorts of fun stuff, but for me, a nice Canseco piece and a reminder of how big he was in the sport, that he was on the cover of this premiere issue for Topps magazine. In addition to that, of course, Canseco cards can be had at pretty reasonable rates. He has some great issues from the 80s and 90s that should be basic part of anybody's collection if they decide to represent him in some way. Some of them. This 91 Fleer with some great art is represented in some strong subsets like the Score Dream Team subset. Topps has got some really clean action shots of Canseco over the years. There are also some of the premium brands that came out. This is the 89 Upper Deck. You get into 90 Leaf, those sorts of things. See some really polished cards. This 90 Score is not a big hit with collectors nowadays, but back in 1990, every kid wanted this card in their collection. Reminder of big moments in his career, this 40-40 Club insert from 89 Donruss. More fun inserts, Score Impact Player. Sort of those classic second-year card, rookie cards that were coveted back in the day. It was a big deal to have a Canseco rookie in your collection back around 1989, 1990. Still, here's a Top Stadium Club from 2019. Fun card, an artistic card, one to have in the collection. But of course, the one that everybody wants, the Jose Canseco card that you've got to have in your collection, is this 1986 Donruss rookie. The card that took the hobby by storm, a big deal card for collectors. But my personal favorite, my Jose Canseco card collecting story, falls on this 1991 Donruss Elite insert that I pulled from a pack. It's actually the only 91 Donruss Elite that I ever pulled from a pack. And just to educate collectors who weren't trying to pull these in 1991, these cards are limited to 10,000, which is a ridiculous number for today's collector. They would have no premium value today, but they were extraordinarily hard to find. This card is the product of breaking box after box after box after box of 91 Donruss. And I was able to do that because they were so overproduced that years later, 93, 94, 95, 96, I was able to pick these up at $5 a box, $6 a box, still at local stores trying to get rid of them. And eventually I hit this one. There's a story back in the day, I don't know if it's true or not. In 91, Donruss was still operating with wax packs, and they said that people could scan a metal detector over the boxes and pick up the boxes that contain these elite cards because of the foil around the border. But it was a huge hunt to come across one. This is the one that I found. Really happy with it. That numbering out of 10,000, I don't think does anything to represent the rarity of the card. And even if you're trying to pick this up today at a card show or on the internet, you're going to pay a decent amount for it, much more than somebody would expect based on the numbering of it. Those early 90 Donruss Elite series are certainly a premium. And just talking about collecting back in the day, there's this one other element of Canseco that, maybe you've got to have if you're going to put him in your collection, which is the good old-fashioned Kenner starting lineup. Those posable figures from the late 80s and 90s. 1990 is the year of this one, and it came, of course, with 2 collector's cards. So it's the big deal this year. And you could see on the back all the different teams that were represented and which players represented them. Andres Galarraga for the Expos, Eric Davis, John Franco, Barry Larkin, Chris Sabo, and more from the Reds. Really some great memories of that time period in baseball. And these figures capture it well. It can be had at pretty reasonable prices. So think about Jose Canseco. Think about, the people who were the biggest story in baseball at certain years, even if they're not held in particularly high regard in the moment, even if they're not there for investment purposes. Players like Canseco could be a lot of fun. They can offer collector opportunity. And I would encourage you to think about getting some of their cards and installing them in your collection. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll like, comment, subscribe, share this video with someone else, particularly in the comments. If you're a Jose Canseco fan, if you've got some Canseco in your collection, share that with us. Tell us your story behind it. Take care.